Welcome back to talking about the tools. Today we are going to be talking about the Athame. So this is one of the tools that looks really intimidating to people who are not part of the craft, but for witches, these are not used as weapons. These are used ceremonially, and there are some that we use to like cut herbs and stuff. Usually though, you don't use your Athame, which is your knife. For this, you would use like I think it's pronounced a bowline. Never actually sure how to pronounce it, but it's more of a curved knife. We'll talk about that probably at a different point. So for now, we have our fancy dancy knives. Now obviously, when you pick out your Athame, there are a handful of books that will tell you that every tool that you use needs to be handmade. These are hard to make. So this one from my collection is actually one of my most prized possessions that I own. This was handmade by my grandfather before he passed away. And he didn't make it for me to be used in witchcraft, but that's what it gets used for. So it has a little belt holder, because that's what he would do all the time. And then he crafted out a knife. He built a forge and everything, just because. Has wood on the handle. And yeah, I have accidentally blooded it on these little ridges here. Didn't mean to, I was using it. And somehow or another, it's sliced open my finger. So it got blooded, which is where you, if you couldn't guess, use your blood to charge your tools. Didn't mean to do that, but it happened. And then mine just snapped shut. I usually honestly leave it like this just so that I don't get hurt. My dog doesn't get hurt. When I use it in ritual, I will take it out of its sheath. But most of the time, you're going to see it chilling on the altar or packing it around like this. Now, you could also go and buy them from stores. I used to have one that was kind of cool. It was a double itty bitty little knife. So I had one about that big and one about that big in a little holder. I got that at one of the like local kind of landmark places to go out here. It's a cave that you can go to. They have a gift shop. I found that knife there because I was looking for a knife. And I liked that it had two, so I would use the itty bitty little, like the tiny ones like this big. So I would use that to like scrape out the wax and stuff from my like candle holders and stuff. And then the slightly bigger one was my itty bitty, like it was like a 2-finger little pinch to hold the handle level for a ritual knife. It worked for a long time. Then I did want to try to make one out of stone. I did find one that I have given to my Morrigan altar, and I've used it on and off as like a tool of hers that I will use occasionally. It's just a stone that I found that was shaped kind of like a blade, and I don't really use it anymore. And at a different point, I had wanted to make my own out of stone, and then I couldn't really figure out how to do that, so I bought one online, and I was going to attach it to a handle. Never did that. And then years later, I ended up getting this one, and so this is the one that I use. All that to say, however you end up with your tool, it will matter, and you might change it over time. Now, what is the Athame associated with? I mentioned this with the wand, and so in tarot, the symbolism of wands and swords, aka knives, are a little different than how I use them as the actual tools themselves. And the reason I associate it with fire is because it is forged in flames. Like, this was made in extreme heat. It takes a lot of hard work and is a lot of will to make this thing work. I think there's a TV show somewhere out there, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a forging show, and it will show you how people like make swords and knives and stuff. It's really interesting, and it shows you how much work and dedication has to go into making it. And I feel like that's an applicable thing to remember about a sword and a knife and your Athame. It's all about will and power and actually doing it. It's not about the mind, it's more about the physically doing it. The direction associated with the Athame is going to be for the south. Now, the way you typically use your Athame is similar to the wand in that you're directing energy, but this is a little bit more forceful. So I will typically do this to complete the casting of the circle if I'm using my tools. And so this is like the finale of like, yep, this is the boundary, don't mess with it. And it's also good for cutting energy, so releasing the circle. That's the first tool I use to start the undoing process. Now in spells, that's pretty easy to see how that would translate over. It's really good for protection spells and like just setting up boundaries and stuff like that. But it's also good for banishings, or if you're into cord cutting, this is a great tool to use. I hope this has been helpful and you learned some stuff about the Athame. Huge thank you to my patrons. I'll have their names here on the screen. If you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightbillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day, and until next time, thank you so much for watching, and bless be.